entire day and scratch the surface. And so I'm trying to, when I do these presentations, I'm trying to do sort of a small, medium, large kind of thing, where we'll start at the beginning and sort of move on. And the reason I say that is to say I will be doing a lot of demos, but I also want you guys to feel free to park me at a spot. Like if it's too easy for you, just say, hey, we're good with this, let's move on. Because I'm not, we'll get to the end with Copilot Studio, all the custom stuff. And if that's what you guys are interested in, we'll spend time on that, right? So I wasn't quite sure the breakdown of folks. It sounds like we have quite a few folks that are in the end user space, which is really what I'm focusing this on today. I just want to point out that if you want to get into custom agents and stuff like that, we'll kind of hit that at the end. So today what we're going to go over is first just understanding the Microsoft AI landscape, which as we said, it is changing all the time. We're going to talk about exactly what an agent is. This is one of those things where terminology changes all the time and you're like, how is that different than the things, why is a bot different than an agent, different than Copilot, different than AI, what is it? And then we're going to spend the bulk of the time really going over what some of the built-in agents are, and then going into a lot of them are part of this something Microsoft calls Frontier. When I was at Ignite, they kept mentioning Frontier, and I'm like, what is this Frontier thing they keep talking about? I'm going to talk with you guys about that. At the end, I'm going to talk briefly about how you can write custom agents. And then finally, at the end, I'm going to talk about some of the ways that Microsoft has been releasing the tools for managing agents. This is something that I think probably, Joe, this is you're more on the IT side of things. It's something you'll be interested in. For some of you other folks, it may just be that being aware of what's out there and understanding the ramifications of what agents do from a security standpoint and how that can make IT folks a little uncomfortable why we need to manage it. So, all right, so we're going to start with understanding the AI landscape. So this is the way that I have tried to break it down in terms of complexity. So we really start with the free version of Copilot. You can have the paid consumer version, the paid Microsoft 365, the free Microsoft 365 version, the paid Microsoft 365 version. Then we get into the built-in agents. Then you can custom build them with Copilot Studio. And then finally, I have Azure Foundry. Now it's Microsoft Foundry. You can now have those are total all-in custom solutions. So we're going to be sort of walking our way down this path on this sense of complexity of whether you're going sort of free, paid agents, custom agents. So first we're going to talk about the versions of Copilot, because this is something that causes insane confusion. How many people, show of hands, are confused by versions of Copilot? Yeah, right. Okay. So we're going to start off. So Copilot free. This is the one, if you go to Bing, it answers for you. On Windows 11, it's built in. I actually decided to spring for a new laptop over Christmas break. And it's funny, I don't know if you guys have ever done this. I've done this with shoes, where I will have my running shoes for if I run, and then I use my old running shoes for out and about shoes. And there have been times where I'm like, I need a new old pair of shoes. So I've got to go buy a new pair of shoes. So I have a new pair of old shoes. I was like, my kids were starting to get into, I got him a 3D printer for Christmas, and my 10-year-old wants to program Arduino robots, and the last one is a Windows 10. So I said, I need a new old computer, so I'm going to go buy a new computer so they can have my old new computer. So this one has the little Copilot button, which I thought was the gimmickiest, stupidest little thing. And now I'm like, that is so helpful. So I can press the Copilot button and it pops up Copilot. That being said, this most people, it's a free version, right? You don't even have to log in to use it. It's just there, right? But if you pull it up in Edge, it'll pop up there. What can be very confusing with this is it will look at, it's context aware. So if you pull up Edge, on a web page, it knows what's there. It feels very robust. And so people don't always know this is just the free version. But again, this is just any Joe can use this, right? Or this Joe, that Joe can use it too, right? All right, then you get into the Microsoft 365 consumer. This was interesting to me because they used to have Copilot Pro. And I think, Teresa, you had bought Copilot Pro, if I'm not mistaken, because you're doing a lot of these demos. So what Microsoft is getting into is like, forget it. We're not selling a one-off license. You can basically, they now have Microsoft 365 consumer subscriptions. This was new to me. They used to call it family. Now they have, it's a little confusing. Basically, clear as mud here. As I'm going through, essentially, if you get Microsoft 365 individual, it's $10 a user a month. And then you get Copilot. If you get Microsoft 365 family, you can have up to 6 users, I think, but only the subscriber gets Copilot. I mean, okay, I guess that doesn't seem helpful to me, but at any rate. And then you get Microsoft 365 Premium. So it used to be $20 a month for Copilot Pro. Now they're just saying, well, if you pay for the premium license, guess what? You get Copilot. But it's going to give you more, you get the preview versions of Copilot, and if there are limits on what you can do, image generation and stuff like that's going to give you more. So this isn't so much for you guys, so much as if you have families at home or kids, just being able to understand that. Or I always say this too. So some folks, their company may not pay for it, and they're just like, hey, if this is a way you want to get your feet wet with it, you can do it for not too big of a commitment. All right, so Microsoft 365 Copilot Chat. This is what some of you guys may or may not have in your organization. And this is what you get if you're in a Microsoft 365 small business or enterprise tenant, but you have not given someone a Copilot license. So they're still going to get Copilot and Teams, this kind of stuff. Did the L disappear again? Okay, all right. At any rate, you're still what's going to at the top when you go to Copilot. If you have a paid version, you're going to see a little picker. This is on at work or the web. The way you know you're not licensed is you don't get the picker. So most folks, again, this can be very confusing because they are like, I see I'm in Copilot, but I don't see the picker. So am I licensed? Am I not? You're not. So essentially, it gives you access to web resources. Now, there's sort of a mixed message, or sort of a half and half here. One of the reasons we tell people originally when it first rolled out is we said we don't want you to train the model, right? You don't want your data to leave your environment and get training ChatGPT or whatever. Well, if you have Microsoft 365 Copilot Chat, it's enterprise, it's secured with the enterprise secured, which means you're not paying for a license, but they still promise that whatever you do is not leaving your tenant. So if you are rolling out the free version, it is secure. At the beginning, we told people do it because you don't want this insecure version, but actually this is good. If you move along though, this is when we get into Microsoft 365 Copilot. The benefit of this is the free version is still just accessing, you can open up Word and you can, summarize Word. You can do generative activities in Word. If you're in Teams, et cetera, a lot of it's summative, generative for a single conversation, single email, a single document, right? The benefit to the Copilot, Microsoft 365 Copilot is now you have access to everything in the tenant, right? So now you can say, show me all my meetings, show me all the tasks I have due, show me, create a slide deck based on this Word document, et cetera. So you can really go in and start having a comprehensive view of what you're doing. So what we've started doing now is, again, the story has been kind of changing a little bit in terms of what we recommend for folks. At the beginning, we said, hey, we want everybody to have a Microsoft 365 Copilot license because we want you to be secure. Well, then they rolled out the free version that is secure. So now we're kind of like, hey, people have to know what to do with the co-pilot license, like what activities they're going to do, and it's actually legit to not have everybody licensed for now if the rule doesn't require it. So now Teresa a lot of times will go in and do sort of a two-phased presentation. The first one is to help educate people on the free version, and then we'll go in and do a second session on the paid version, because they really do have different advantages. But I'll just say the good thing is I feel like this sort of freemium model is a good thing for companies. But that being said, we're going to move on to agents.
Hey, Becky,
yeah,
can I add just one thing? They just recently came out with a education pricing for Copilot. So instead of being the $30, it's $18 a month.
Nice.
Yeah.
That is nice to see, and that's one thing I will say at the beginning, Microsoft did not want to discount it at all, because frankly, it cost them so much money that there just wasn't, they were like as a reseller, I was making like 5%, you know, and usually it was like 20 points, and it was like, nope, for Copilot, you're not making it. I don't know if you saw that too.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so I feel like, I don't know whether they've gotten more efficient with their production, or I don't know what the story is, but it is nice to see that their profit margins are moving in line, because it was the same thing. Why have nonprofit clients that weren't, the nonprofit pricing wasn't much cheaper, and usually nonprofit is a lot, you know, in line with like education. So thank you for pointing that out.
Sure. Yep.
So next, I just want to talk quickly about Work IQ. This was something where I was like, I don't know where to put it, but they talked about it at Ignite. And Work IQ is one of these sort of, I don't want to say gimmicky things. What's hard is there are a bunch of different features, and Microsoft has a hard time sometimes expressing the value of it, because it's like it does this and it does this and does this. So I put a nice little name on it to encapsulate it. So Work IQ is a bit of a gimmicky thing. But the key with Work IQ is simply saying that they've built in memory. At the beginning, there was no memory, in the sense of learning your writing tone, learning your style, knowing, like memorizing what you, like building new responses based on what you have done. I will say one of the tricky things that Microsoft has been navigating over the last couple of years is compliance and legal issues. They're sort of darned if they do and darned if they don't. If they retain data, some people are like, in Europe, they're like, you can't retain data. But then you get into other legal where they're like, well, legally, we have to know if we did something wrong or not. And so they keep ping-ponging between, like, are they supposed to retain it? Are they not? And then you get into this weird thing where, well, we have to retain information so that if somebody requests it to be removed, we can remove it. I mean, it's a little bit strange. So at any rate, the benefits, when you, I actually used Copilot to create this graphic, by the way, which was kind of cool. So I basically said, summarize Work IQ. Then I said, create an infographic. Actually, it suggested to me to make an infographic. I wasn't planning on it, and until it asked me if I wanted to. I said, sure. And then it said, it made it a vertical, because a lot of infographics are, and I was like, I actually don't want it to be vertical, I like it to be horizontal. So I made it horizontal, and then I said, use savvy colors. And so it actually turned into colors. So I thought it was kind of fun, and just letting you guys know, isn't that cool? Now, there are some bumps along the way. At first, it used a different savvy technical solutions. I don't know. There's another company called Savvy Technical Solutions in like Australia that sometimes, you know, so it was all orange and stuff. And then it had this weird AI generated savvy logo that wasn't the real one. I was like, take that off. So as everything with AI, that took a little bit of, you know, making it work, but at the same time. So the point there really is talking about just the fact that it will remember, and then it's doing prediction and stuff like that, which is one thing that ChatGPT did and Copilot didn't do because they thought they legally couldn't, and I guess they got the green light to do it. But it is very, very cool. All right, so what exactly is an agent? So I'm going to move on to next, this is the core, but we're going to talk about which are built-in agents. So I ask Copilot, and the more I see of it, the best way I can say is that an agent is task specific, and then an agent is multi-step and interactive. That's the best way I can sum it up. AI, Copilot, ChatGPT is, you can ask a question and you get an answer back. And then you ask another question, you get another answer back. It's very one-off, right? I need to do this. We talk about refine, refine, refine. The paradox is that AI is naturally not process oriented, it's randomized. That's the beauty of AI, is it's randomized, right? But that's very difficult when you need to actually do something over and over again, right? This is where, what does it do? So what it means is these task specific just means if I'm in Microsoft Project, I can say, create a plan in Planner for this kind of project. So I actually want it to do something. So up until now, AI the doing was generating, summarizing, asking, questioning, like querying, but it really wasn't, it didn't do anything. And so these tasks are really not just that they can do something, create a Word document for me. Not just generate the text, but actually create the document, create a plan, create tasks, but then also it's interactive. So there's a little bit of logic built in to say, okay, you want to create a Word document, what is the tone? So it's going to, instead of you having to say, that's wrong, do it again, that's wrong, do it again, that's wrong, do it again, it'll actually say, okay, you want to create an infographic, what is the topic? What should it look like? Is this theme okay? So it's going to go through and actually have a little bit of logic built in that's more process oriented to extract the information from you. The interesting thing is Microsoft's bot framework has been around for a decade. I did presentations at DevUp on the bot framework like 8 years ago, or I don't know, a long time. We used to call these bots. This is not new. A bot is a variation of the old school voice agents, right? When we started getting into press 1 for this and press 2 for that. I mean, so it's a continuum, right? But it's nice to see here that the idea here, so I had Copilot create this chart for me, but it is helpful to say that it's really, to me, the two things are task specific and multi-step. It also said multimodal, but the idea is you can, most agents you can say, I want this to be voice activated, I want to be on a web page. That's sort of ancillary, a lot of AI can do that as well. But so the other thing is autonomy. This is also interesting. An AI agent is, or an AI like Copilot is initiated by the user. The user is the one initiating a prompt. I need you to do something. You say it, you type it, whatever. Agents can be autonomous. So this is where we get into daisy chaining agents together, right? Every time a new project is created, we try to use the smart sheets. So for their help desk, right? And so I know every time something's logged in the IT store, it creates something in smart sheets. So if you had an agent that said, submit a ticket for this, do that, then you could say every time a new product is purchased, call the agent that would create a help desk ticket, or call this, or, so you could have different ways of basically rather than having a flow, kick off different tools or applications, the agent could do it, and then your initial agent can call other agents, right? Something like that. So the idea is you can have the agents can act autonomously, they can be triggered as it were by other agents. This obviously creates a security kind of heartburn, right? Of like, oh my goodness, what if my agents are autonomously doing all this stuff, right? And so this is where it gets very powerful, but also like, this is where you start going, whoa. I hate to say, this is where, to me, the whole sort of Terminator, Rise of the Machines starts going like, you've really got to have safeguards, because if you have another agent trotting off or doing stuff, you really need to be able to monitor that, right? So in terms of the business model, going back to the versions of Copilot, this is what I really like. When I said you don't have to have a paid version of Copilot, I really see this as a value proposition here. Microsoft figured out nobody wants to pay for the generative AI, the summative AI, because everybody is sort of giving it away for free. But there still has to be, like, basically they spent 2 years begging everybody to buy Copilot and nobody did. The price was too high and nobody saw the value in it. Capitalism is working the way it should. If nobody's buying it, figure out what people want, right? And I will say, to Microsoft's credit, they have started saying, all right, we're going to give that for free because nobody wants to pay for it anyhow. What is the value we're offering? And now I feel like it really is building agents into every single workload. I personally am now getting to the point where I'm like, now I feel like I can't live without Copilot. Whereas before I was like, rewriting emails is something that doesn't scratch my itch. Now I create presentations like this. So I use the generative AI to help me brainstorm ideas and stuff like that. But I'm saying there are different parts of it. But now being able to have agents that are actually helping me with full body tasks becomes more valuable, right? And so I feel like that's sort of the missing piece before. It was always like, oh, if you just use a Copilot chat and you say, create a Word document, like literally it said, do you want to create a Word document that can be exported as a PDF? I was like, yes. And I was like, okay, take this text, copy it and paste it into a Word document. Like Copilot literally told me to do that. And I was like, well, that's not very helpful. But now you can actually use an agent that'll actually create the Word document, right? So I'm just saying there's small things that are going to be more baked into every tool, and you're going to start to feel like I can't live without it. And that's a good thing in the sense that that means the product is delivering that, right? So let's first talk about the Frontier program. All the Frontier program is early access. The thing about it is if you're working in Microsoft 365 tenants, they have this idea of tiers of you can roll out to different tiers. And so they already have it set it up where you're in the early adoption or regular, they call it rings. This is sort of like a separate early adoption ring just for Copilot features, right? So the great thing is that I thought that in the past for Copilot, you had to be part of their TAP program or, their early access program. They have different names for it. This one, anybody can sign up to. So honestly, you can go to the admin center, go to Copilot, click on settings and just say, sign in. So you can say, do all users get it? Do certain users get it? So just like you can do with the Microsoft 365 rings, you can really turn this on and test it out. I was really happy that, because like they say in the past, it was like, well, you have to do that if you buy so many licenses or whatever. This is available to anybody and everybody. You just have to turn it on.
So do they have to have Copilot license?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because they're agents and you can't get access to the agents
So you
without.
can apply to users that have that.
Correct. Yes. Thank you for pointing that out.
Do you know if they have participation requirements for that?
They do not. No, that's what I'm saying. I was like,
Surprising.
it was during Ignite. I didn't go to Ignite this year because they started doing it right before Thanksgiving, which is just gosh awful time. So I was like, I'm not doing that. But I would listen online, and while I'm listening to the keynote, I'm like, ooh, let me go turn that on. And I was like, it's there. I mean, it was like instant, right? So it's great.
So would users see anything different on the ring?
It means when they go to the agents, what you're gonna see, this is what they're gonna see. So if you go to the agents, if you look at the list of agents, if you notice the agencies say Frontier in parentheses, those are the agents that are available with that Frontier subscription. Without that, they're gonna get the other ones, that have been out of the box for a while.
Becky, you said that if it, on the prior slide, if it was turned on there, it's available to everyone who has.
Right, so
Copilot?
you have to have a paid Copilot license to access agents, I believe. So.
And you have to have so many
uh,
licenses too, I think, in your tenant to be able to qualify for that, but I could be wrong about that part. I'm pretty sure there is
For the
some kind of
Frontier?
cap. Thought there was a cap, but maybe not.
I mean, if there was, I mean, why, we're a small business and we have like 10 licenses or so. Now we have,
That's it.
I don't, That
Okay.
might be, it might be worth
Becky?
looking into. I don't think that there's a
Hang on,
threshold.
Teresa's.
Teresa?
In my
Say
demo
something?
environment, I only have one user and I have access to it.
Okay, strike that from the record.
There are some other, there's later in the deck, there is another, I'm trying to remember what feature it was, that there was a requirement. Oh, it's for the Viva stuff that I'm gonna get to, like workplace insights, there was and that's at any rate. But for Frontier, thank you, Teresa. That was my understanding, is anybody can get to it. But what we're saying is you have to have a Copilot license, a paid license to get to agents, period. But if you turn on Frontier, you're gonna get those early access agents. This is not a comprehensive list, but, these other agents may or may not show up within that list of agents. This is like, I'm showing you the view from like Copilot and Teams, or if you go to copilot.com. Facilitators, what's gonna show up in Teams. Actually, I should have turned that, you know what? I'm not recording this session.
Yes, I did.
Oh, you did? Thank you. Can you turn on facilitator for us?
Yeah.
Thank you. This is why Jamie's awesome. Facilitator, I can't live without. That is the number one reason I have a paid license, 110%. Oh my gosh, I can't live without facilitator anymore. Does everybody here in the room use facilitator?
I haven't even heard of it. That's gonna happen. I see it in the.
So that's different than like Teams that transcribe.
Yeah, so it auto writes all your meeting minutes for you, but it includes like tasks. So when you, instead of just saying with a follow-up, it'll actually create actionable tasks in Planner that are a follow-up. It's saved in Loop, so you can access it with Microsoft Loop after the fact. But now you can query it in Copilot. So I have so many times where I'm like, I will have a meeting with someone and then a month later I have a follow-up. I don't remember the details of that meeting. And instead of having to read through the transcript, I can go to Copilot and say, how many hours did I scope that for? What was the dollar amount? Did I give them a dollar amount? Was there a timeline on that? And I don't have to read through the entire transcript. I can actually ask. And it'll go forward and pull me to the reference, will be the time in the video. And it'll put me at that time and I can hear myself saying that or someone else saying that.
So set that option in when you're setting up a Teams meeting, little slider.
Yeah, so if we go into the meeting right here, so if I go in here and so facilitator is on right now. So if I click on notes, if you notice that, because Jamie's awesome, she turned it on, it's actually writing it real time for us. So you can see, and then Teresa's in there. So she's looking at the meeting minutes, which are awesome. And then if I say open in Loop, it's actually gonna pull it open and I can actually see the meeting minutes real time. Everybody can co-author them.
And you have to turn that on after you've joined the meeting and started the meeting.
You do have to remember to turn it on, but it is one of those things where and when I'm scheduling a meeting from, and Teresa, maybe you can correct me, I don't know if you know more about it, but I think that if you're scheduling an Outlook, you can't always turn on Teams options, but if you schedule the meeting from Teams, they have a toggle that says enable the facilitator, I think, so you can have it. So,
Or you can also define your agendas for your meetings and then put a timeline at the top of your meetings and make sure it is
Prompt.
when you
and-
started a topic.
Yes, thank Thank you. Yeah, that's a good point. You're right. You can go ahead of time to meetings in the future. And yes, you can go in and you can, thank you, Andy, for that. Yeah, you can put your agenda ahead of time, and it's all part of those meeting minutes. And so you're right. And yeah, having the timer is kind of cool. We have to move this topic and this topic, so.
It
It
also
is,
joins, it also joins your chat messages, and it will put notes out in your chat as well.
Thank you. Yes, and
Yeah.
that is also important because Loop is only accessible to people in your tenant. And so it becomes difficult if people outside your tenant, like if y'all join the meeting or the folks online need to access it, they're not gonna have access to the Loop page. But because the chat's gonna dump, the facilitator's gonna dump it in the chat, everybody has access to it as long as they've been invited and their tenant allows them to join that chat. Thank you, Teresa. Yeah, I didn't spend a lot of time on it because it's been out for a while, but to me, that is 110% why. Like if there's one killer app for me, it means now when I'm having meetings with clients, I am actually more focused on what we're actually talking about and listening and active listening than having to sit there and be like, oh, they're talking and I'm writing and I'm only half listening. I mean, it's great for that. Sales is part of Dynamics. If you use Dynamics, sales is basically Microsoft 365 plus Dynamics. So essentially what it is. Project Manager is built into Planner. They are actually going to get rid of, in the future, I think they've announced it on the roadmap. In the future, you're not going to say, do I want a premium plan or a regular plan? They're all going to be, if you have the Copilot license, it's just a plan, and if you have the license, you get the agent for free. Teresa did an entire session on this in the past, and so if you guys go to our website, I think we have the recording. Don't we have it on our website? So if you guys want to go and get that deep dive on the project manager agent, you can dive in. So I kind of didn't include that here since we did a whole session on that before. The Office app agents, that wasn't in that list, but I'm going to show that to you today. And then SharePoint site agents, and we're going to talk about that too. So let's start off. I'm going to start off by talking about Office and SharePoint agents and walk through each of these. So Office app agents basically are, it's not a big thing, but it's kind of like I was saying before. Previously, you had to open up Word and say, insert this text. You would have to open up PowerPoint and say, add these slides. It's a small thing, but a big thing, but you can actually go in and say, create a document that has this. And so for Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, basically now you can go in and you can actually say, I would like to generate a document. And what it's going to do is it's going to go in there and say, what is the target audience? What tone do you have? What theme do you want to have? So this goes back into, it's really small, but instead of, it could be conversational. This is the UI for it. It may change, but again, the idea is when it's done, it actually will create it. It generally is going to create it in OneDrive. So that's the one thing. There's a folder that'll happen in OneDrive that says Copilot generated documents. And so it's still up to you to take that and to move it if you don't want it just to be there, but it's a great idea.
So then do you look up a flow and move it from your OneDrive to a SharePoint site?
You could, but I mean, is every single document in your OneDrive always going to go to the same spot? I mean, maybe it would go in different teams.
I'm thinking like, so my manager's tasking us she wants to do a workflow when a project opens up. First step is emails to executives or sponsors, et cetera, et cetera. Eventually generate project plan, generate all that kind of stuff.
So I think
by talking to it.
This is more, I would say, again, a specific, because it's going to be saved in the user's OneDrive who's initiating it. I would say what you're talking about is more a candidate for Copilot Studio. But the great thing, we'll talk about Copilot Studio, you can use natural language to create your agent. So it's pretty, what you're talking about is, we'll kind of get that to the end. That's where things are kind of like, what's that line between agent created and local? Yeah. The next thing, agent mode, is pretty much the same thing. If you're in Excel, Word, they don't have it for PowerPoint yet. It's just for Excel and Word. But essentially agent mode just says, this is sort of in Word. And again, having talked with the Microsoft product team when I was out there at MVP Summit last year, they have struggled with, do you have the floating icon? Do you have a prompt at the top? Do you have a pane in the side? Like, how do you make it there but not intrusive? They have struggled from a UI perspective. That prompt at the side, if you say to Word, generate this text, believe it or not, it can't insert it from the Copilot pane into the Word document. You're like, it's right there. But if you click the Copilot cursor in the Word document, then it can do it. So all agent mode does is it helps. You can type something in your pane and then actually insert it in the document. So it's not a huge thing, but this is that bridge between querying, generating to actually doing. So especially if you're working with Excel, it's actually kind of cool because you can say insert a bar graph based on the data, you know, so that part's kind of. So let's go through and we're gonna start demoing this. So to start off with, so I'm in the Copilot app. It started when I clicked my handy Copilot icon. So if you look on the left side, if we look at all the agents over here, these are the agents that I've created or used. It's sort of in that frequently used list. And then Microsoft's giving us this built by Microsoft. Actually, the Office agents were down there when I used it. I think I removed it from that queue. So you can either click on agents and choose an agent. So if I go in and I say, I want to use this Word Frontier agent, it's going to pop it up. Just so you know, you can also go to a chat, just the Copilot chat, and you can actually say chat with an agent. If I pull it up, if I say I want to talk with the Word agent, it's going to do it. Sort of the same thing. Unfortunately, I don't see a way where I can do things to more than one agent yet here. It is sort of one at a time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, create a Word document. I'm going to say, create the text for a blog article about agents based on the slide deck. And then for sources, now do you see it says web search? I tried this demo and I had web search on and it literally brought me a totally random thing from the internet. It even had another company's name in there as the byline. It was shocking. So I would say if you want to be able to say create a document based on market insights, use the web search. But in this case, I'm going to say add word content. And I'm actually going to look for, in this case, I'm going to use, this was a Loop presentation I did. So I'm going to say create a blog article. Actually, I'm going to say about, we're going to change the text of that. I will say that I kept trying over and over for this slide deck and it wasn't doing it right. And I think it's because it's that semantic indexing. For some reason, I think it was too new of a deck and it wasn't indexing it right. And so it's grasping at straws. But so again, these are some of the nuance. I would say a lot of these are very, very buggy right now. And so even I was sort of panicking a little bit to show you guys a demo because I was like, let's see if any of this works. But everything's like this at the beginning. But I think the key is for you guys to understand it will get better. They are working on it and it is getting better as time goes on. And so it's good to see what it's going to happen here. While it is generating the document, I'm actually going to pull up our attendance, our invite list of who's coming. And in here, I'm actually going to pull open the RSVP list. And I'm going to, right here, I'm actually going to say change this to agent mode. So this is where it's actually pulling up my last instructions, but I'm going to try this again and say insert a bar graph on sheet 2 that indicates how many people RSVP'd to attend in person as opposed to online. See what happens. All right, so it's gonna go through, and if we go to sheet 2, let's see if this magic is happening. All right. Because these things, okay, so I'm setting up a bar graph in sheet 2 to display, so it's telling me what it's doing, it's working on it. And it's actually giving me a little blow by blow, right? Finalizing the attendance chart. Let's see if this generates. Back to our Copilot. Okay, so now I'm switching back and forth because this takes time trying to make efficient use. What is the IT audience? It's for IT professionals. What tone should the blog have? Professional, formal, what theme? So I'm going to say, let's go. So the same thing, this agent is actually going to start working on it, and it's actually going to pop open a pane. And show me what it's building right in front of me. So this idea of actually seeing agents at work is pretty cool. All right, so here we go. It did create a chart. Now that background is, that's a difficult color to read, so we can probably keep going in and change that fill. But it did. So isn't that cool? So it actually, again, it jumped from, in the past, if you just have not agent mode, it would say, insert this formula to cell 2, right? And so the fact that it's simple, but it's a much needed, like I said, do it, just go do it. So that's an example of that working, that agent mode, when you turn that on. If we go back to Copilot here, it's actually going through, it's preparing the document outline. So again, we can see this sort of working in action here. Not sure why it's trying to use search and everything like that. This is, sometimes I run into issue where even though I referenced the document, it's up there, it doesn't always see it. And so sometimes I get to the end of it and it's like, I didn't see, I can't find the document they're looking for. So that's one of the issues I've had here, but, I sort of want to see it open up. So you can see the sources include Microsoft 365 data, and it's showing me what data is being included in that search. And so again, you can get into Copilot search, you can have external sources included as well. So, okay, well, I'm going to keep moving and jump back to this because I don't want to have us stare at that working, but it is in progress and we'll see that keep going. All right, next one is Knowledge Agent. Have any of you guys worked with the Knowledge Agent? Turn it on. This one is another one that I feel like is another killer app.
Is that one like where I was trying to do something within SharePoint, like create an agent in SharePoint where you could search only a certain.
That's different. I'll show that
Oh.
next. Related, 5 degrees off. Yeah, but similar. So the Knowledge Agent, is basically, there's about 3 things it does. The first thing it does is really just using natural language to set up views, rules, and columns, which you can all do in the user interface and have been able to do since 2007. But a lot of people don't know how to create a view and they don't know what they're, they don't know how to create a column. So you can actually say, create a column for expiration date, create a column for this or that. Create a view that only shows the documents that have been assigned to me as a project manager. Show me all the documents that are 1 year older than today. So you can use natural language to create these. So this is really helpful for end users who aren't so familiar with leveraging views and stuff. The thing that to me, when I say it's a killer app, is if any of you guys use, it used to be syntax, but it was the auto fill columns. Have any of you used auto fill columns? You have. Autofill columns are amazing. So it used to be with syntax, which was out like 3 years ago. You could train the model. This is early days of before Copilot and ChatGPT. You would say, I'm going to upload 10 invoices. So back way back time machine. There's a company in town called Knowledge Lake, and they got bought by Fujitsu. And their whole thing was if you scanned in a document, you can have a little tool and say the invoice number is always the top right and the dollar amount is always the bottom. And it would kind of just memorize the region on the page. That's been around for decades, but it always had to be exactly the same. Once we got into AI processing, they're like, okay, feed me enough of these invoices and I'll figure out that there's always a dollar amount, there's always an invoice number, there's always a date, but it could be all over the place. If it's a document that I originated, I always know it's the same, but if it's coming from other people, it's not. Well, then we had, so with Syntax 3 years ago, you had to feed it documents and train it. Now to the autofill, you literally just go into the column and say, put the invoice number in here, put the dollar amount in here, put the date, and it will figure it out for you. Now, when you put this on top of with rules, so rules are basically really, they're like, you don't even need a Power Automate workflow. Basically, you can go in and say, what are the columns that have a date time? I can go into rules and say, send me an email X amount of time before this column's value. So now I have a contract library that has expiration dates. Now what I can do, send this person an email, this person an email 1 month before my contract's expired. All out of the box. So if you set up this autofill column and now you have these really easy rules, all of a sudden you have these really robust processes that are very common. I had a client that they had passports and they had to make sure people knew 1 year, 6 months, whatever you need to renew your passport. I have a contracts library. It'd be nice to know when they expire, et cetera. So this is just incredibly helpful because when you start thinking about how this can really be used, they have another one where you can have it, it'll create auto tags for you, where you can go in and basically say, what document types are in here? So if you have, we have a legal library that it has statements of work, contract extensions, master service agreements. I can actually go in there and it'll say, hey, I think you have these document types. So it'll suggest them to you. You can say yes or no, and then you can have it scanned. And all of a sudden now, guess what? Now you have everything tagged. And now you can create views. Now you can create rules, and nobody had to set up a thing. The power of tagging documents has been around for a year. When we first rolled out SharePoint, there were these like holy wars about whether we use tagging or not, because some people are like, you don't use folders anymore, because a folder is one way to categorize information, right? It's this or it's that. But what if it's two things at the same time? Now we can tag it, we can group by and sort and filter. I spent creating these really exotic systems for a number of years this way. Well, then we got into syncing data to your desktop. Well, guess what? Windows doesn't have any metadata. So we were like, let's just put them back in folders again. But metadata does have value because you can sort, group, filter, search, and have actions on these. So the secret sauce of having AI do it now is so simple, but so powerful now. And so enabling that now, when they first rolled it out, I think you still have to use a PowerShell prompt to enable it in your tenant. Why? I don't know. I mean, it's not part of Frontier, I think. But I had to go in and there's a PowerShell prompt where you have to say enable it. It's part of it is you have to enable it on certain sites. So that's because some people may not want the autofill. It's tied to consumer pricing, your Azure consumption. It costs like 0.02 cents per document, something like that. But it can get very expensive. I had a client that was a manufacturer and they have like 7 plants. And I was trying to set up a whole app for them to auto tag invoices. I built the whole app. They decided we don't want to go in that direction, but we didn't really have a formal, like, we're done with this. They just were like, I said, here it is, please test it. I didn't hear back from them for like a couple months. I kept saying, they're like, we're still working on it. Turns out they went a different direction, but they never told me to stop the processing. And he was like, yeah, we have it was like thousands of dollars for this one. It was like $2,000 just for this one library. Because it was every single invoice for the whole company. I was like, whoa. So that's one of those things, again, where I'm like, test it. Just be aware of how much processing is going to be involved. Because it doesn't sound like a lot until you start going like, oh, we have 10,000 documents in here. Sorry.
And we did, just to plug our newsletter here, we did have a newsletter article about the knowledge agent. I put it in our meeting chat, but we'll send like a recap of today's meeting, and I'll make sure to include that link as well. So if you aren't subscribed to it, I think it was November's article, so it's a couple months ago, but Becky gives some like screenshots of the different things that she's referring to as well, that kind of walks you through, gives you another perspective, but just a little plug there for our.
Thank you for that reminder. Thank you. It really is, I'm spending time on it a lot just because it's so easy, it's so powerful, I feel like. The other part of Knowledge Agent is actually for internet sites. And so, again, getting back to agentic, before you can go to a SharePoint page and say, add content to this page, now you can actually go in and say, create a page and say, where do you want me to put it? And put it in that spot. The other thing that's really cool is you can fix broken links. Find content gaps. To me, I don't really know what that means yet, but the retire inactive pages is interesting. I was like, the product team talked about this a little bit. I was in one of the sessions when they were revealing this at night, and it's they're not going to unpublish it for you. They're just going to put a banner at the top that says, this page has not been edited for 2 years. It may be out of date. So if you've ever gone to Microsoft's help site, they do have pages that say, you are asking about SharePoint 2016. This content is here for legacy purposes and is no longer being updated. So this is actually a great way of being able to flag stuff is, you know what? The funny thing is for I should have this on Savvy's website, because I get stats every month about what article get hit. When there's a little known product called Kaizawa, which is like WhatsApp. It's technically part of Microsoft 365. Nobody knows about it because it really was built as a Microsoft Garage pet project. It got spun up and it is heavily used in India. That is the only place that they use it. But you don't have to have a Microsoft 365 account. You can put in your phone number. So I guess we use, what's the app we use that's tied? It was like Skype or Hotmail that a lot of people use. It's for consumer. What am I thinking of? It's called, but it was the same type of group chat.
Slack?
What?
Slack?
No, it's not that full body. It's literally for like, it's like teams, or you know, if you have a soccer team or something like that, like, you know, at church we'll use it for like nursery duty or whatever. It's, but it was tied to Skype back in the day. You don't think?
I do,
I mean,
sports teams use it to communicate amongst them.
Teenagers use it, you know, it's, anyhow, I'm just saying, all I'm saying is on my website, I wrote an article about it like 5 years ago when it came out, and it's still one of the top hit articles. What?
Remind.
It's not Remind. I'll think of it. At any rate, I'm just saying, people keep hitting my website, and I'm like, do I take it down? It's really out of taste, but they keep, but it seems to be helpful. Anyhow. Okay. So let's look at the, this. So we're gonna go to. So in my, I have a fake HR site I've set up here. So I can go into my site, I'm gonna go to my documents library. I used Copilot to create some fake documents, all right?
Could you zoom in a little bit? It's hard to
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yep.
just browse through it.
Oh, well, that was too much, okay.
I'm just making up my own content.
It's like, okay. I'm not gonna do that. That is too much here, let me,
It's
I'm
larger.
just gonna zoom the browser.
Yeah.
Some people are better at that, zoom in and zoom out.
Control plus.
Third one from the top.
Thank you. Okay, so this is something, I used Chrome for many years because I could put different profiles, and when I switched computers, I finally switched to Edge, and there's just certain things where I'm like, I feel like a newbie all over again. Okay, so if you see
You're
here.
Microsoft user, aren't you supposed to be using Edge?
Well, because before you could have different profiles, and I have a profile, I mean, literally, if you see the other one, I had about 25 different clients, because every client, I wanted to remember the credentials. It gets really stupid.
Yeah.
So, but now you can have them in Edge, so I have. Okay. So, for each of these documents, I actually had we look at it like the effective date that I just put in there, effective, January 1st. So I'm gonna go in the knowledge agent and I'm gonna actually say, organize this library. And it's gonna give me these options. Do I want to create columns? Do I want to create a rule? Do I want to extract key options? Do I want to summarize documents? I didn't even do anything. It already went through and it said, hey, I think you want these columns. It actually got the policy effective date,
Now, did
leave
you say
duration
you
minimum.
Turn on knowledge agent?
What?
Did you say you had to turn on knowledge agent?
You do, because you have to whitelist which sites you want, whether it's all of them or some of them, because you can do the auto extract. They don't want people to turn it on and then somebody goes crazy and then costs your company tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's, I think, why, I just wish they had a UI option for it, but right now it's just PowerShell.
Okay.
But at any rate, if you look at that, it's kind of cool, applicable state law. Where is it applicable? So that's coming, it decided that. Now I can actually go in here and I can actually say, no, I like this. Yes, I like this, applicable state law. I can edit. And I can say, instead of single line of text, we're gonna make that a choice column. And I'm gonna say, extract the full name of the applicable state law. I'm gonna say, extract.
Now, is it converting that document library to like a SharePoint list or anything?
Nope.
Okay,
Nope.
it's just adding columns.
It is just adding columns. Extract the name of the state where this is, where the policy is active.
Lock in.
I was gonna say good luck. You can't leave.
Correct. All right, so I'm gonna say Illinois and Missouri. So I actually took their option, I tweaked it, I changed it. And I actually have a different column setting now, so I'm gonna save the changes. And now it's gonna go through instead of being a text, and that leave duration, I'm gonna change, it already decided it was a number, that's cool, so it knows that. And then the date, we're gonna go to the date, and we're gonna say that's date and time. And using the auto, it has a format, it actually told us to use year, month, day. So I'm gonna say, nope, I want day. CD. So it actually gave me a formatting option, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and save my changes. It's giving me an option whether I want to create a new view, use that one. All right, so actually what it's showing right now is it's processing all of those documents. It's reading them, it's processing them, it's doing that autofill activity. And in a minute, we should be able to see. All right, so it actually put that in, so you can see it changed it from saying what is the law that's applicable to, I made my change to the state. Now you can see here, there's no value or not found. So sometimes you have to say if no value is found, put this. So again, like everything, the leave duration, before it showed, in the preview, it showed 40, and now it didn't do that, right? So the thing I always say about this, oh, you know what? Okay, it wasn't done extracting like this. Okay, so there we go. And then there's the policy effective date. Now I can change that from a date time just to say a date, right? So I can go and say, you know what? I don't want a date and time. I just want to have the date. Include time. I don't want that. Okay, now that being said as well, then I can go in and now I can also create a rule. So if we, right now, if you guys are not familiar with rules, if I automate and I create a rule, this is where, if a file or the metadata is modified, alert. So this is a replacement for alerts. Back in the day, say if somebody adds a file, if files edited, let me know. This is for the grid. Sometimes you don't want to know every time it's edited. You just want to know if there's a new item. So these first two replace the previous SharePoint alerts. This other one is sort of that, what I was saying, the logic based. So I would say 30 days. Now they only have before, they don't have after. I had a policy effective date. I would probably want to add another column that's, a year after or something like that. But I could say, all right, so 30 days before that policy effective date, send an email, and I don't have to send it to anybody. I can, sorry, my last pass is getting in there. Stop last pass. So it doesn't have to be me, it can be anybody. But having that rule in there is helpful, but again, I can go in here and if I say, create a new view, I can now say, show, and it's giving me options, right? Show me all the documents with an effective date after, in 2026. So it's gonna say, here's the, and you can see over there, it did it, right? It filtered it for me. And so I'm gonna say, all right, save changes. And it's called, and it gave it a name for it. So I can say, change the name, etc. So yeah, that's an example of, being able to use it that way. Now on the internet, I can go in, let's go to the pages agent. So, that was the knowledge agent. Actually, let me go back. I'm gonna keep going because we gotta keep going. All right. SharePoint agents. This is what you were talking about, Joe, in terms of, this is an alternate way of using your intranet. So the SharePoint agents basically allow you to access content in your SharePoint intranet site. It could be in your team site as well. The key here is your scope. You're creating a scope. So one of the problems with Copilot scope is that it's so big. It's going to return everything. So if I say, what's the family leave policy? It could be accessing a policy from 10 years ago. I want to know what the current policy is. So this is a lot of times when we spend time building intranets with folks, we also want to be able to create another agent that's targeted just for that relevant information on the intranet, right? So it could be for team sites. So again, if you have a team for each project, you could create an agent that's just scoped for that project. And then if people want to be able to say, show me all the project documents that have been modified in the last month, Copilot can do it because it's scoped to the right place. You can create it for the whole site. That's sort of there kind of by default. It'll save it actually in your site assets library for that site. So you'll see it, .agent. It's a file extension.
Now, do users need to have a Copilot license to access that? Or
So if they, good question. So if they are licensed, it's free. And if they're not licensed, there's a per request fee. So the way Microsoft pennies it out, it's about 2 cents per processing step. But to process a request for SharePoint content, it can end up being about 12 cents per request. That means 10 requests and you're already at $1. So this again is one of those freemium things where you have to decide as a company if this is valuable or not.
Can you disable people without a license to not run that agent?
No. So, yeah. So again, it's valuable, but this is for organizations that are probably already paid for Copilot across the board. There are ways to hack this, and we'll talk about it at the end. It is possible for some folks that have very highly used agents. You can use Copilot Studio to create an agent and have the agent make a call to your third-party processor, your LLM, and then that's like drastically cheaper. So you're sort of bootlegging it a little bit. So there are ways to get that cost down. Benefit of this is it's out of the box. If you're not a huge organization or you just have proactively licensed everybody, this is incredibly awesome. Right? You can also scope to individual documents in a library, and then it's just the agent is saved in the library actually. So. All right, and then we have the SharePoint page agent, the same thing we talked about, create this content, and it's going to say, where do you want to create it? You click on the recently used site and it'll actually create it in there and that kind of thing. So let's look at this. So if I go into my this HR site, You'll notice this little agent icon at the top. So this is technically, I think, part of the knowledge agent. Knowledge agent is already gonna let me kind of query the site. But if I look over here at the different agents, I actually, if you say create an agent, it's gonna actually scope it to whatever site you're at right now. So the other one I created was with HR agent. You can give it an icon, you can specify the purpose. By default, it's gonna source the whole site, which is sort of the easiest, but you could actually go in here and say, grab it, you can look for a different site. So at this level, if you're creating a site agent, so this is where if you had an intranet, I could go in here and I could say, this is my intranet agent and all the sites associated with my intranet are included in it. So this is a way where instead of the,
So if you put this agent like out on the, like the main SharePoint page or something, and you say only allow certain folders within a site or something.
so this is where I'm saying if you're gonna, do it at the site level, you can only scope it to certain sites. And so I'm gonna show this to start with, but then I'll show you how you can do it at the document level. So your agent is ready. All right, so here's the deal. If you want to use it on a page. So I've created the agent. People, if they went to the agent's icon, they could get it, but most people aren't gonna know that. In fact, there is, I'm gonna, change this, our section here to be, we're gonna add that. And vertical right two columns, right? So over here, say I was, regardless of the look, if you see here, there's a web part called agent link. This is where I can set up the agent. I can have small, medium, large. And this is where I can actually go in here and say, all right, what is the agent that I'm actually using? So if I have this demo HR agent, it can be a button, it can have the name of it, or it can have that description. So if I go into here, this is a way where if you're on the homepage of the site, it's a web part, and literally what's going to do is pop open that bar to say, hey, so I can say, what is the family leave policy? See, it doesn't answer. I scoped this on the HR site, and it should have indexed those documents in there that are part of the site, because they're in the site. So here's the summary of the document, how to apply, and then here's the scope of the document. Was an HR site. So this just gives people a way of, even though they can browse your site and get to it, this is an alternative way to get to it.
Only users that have access to the content would be able to get results, right? Okay.
But if you have to have that Azure consumer, consumption, the Azure pay-as-you-go pricing set up, because they have to pay for that. So if they have a Copilot license, it's free. If they don't have Copilot, we'll pay per query.
Well, I just meant like permission levels.
Well, it's embedded on the page. So again, I think if,
Like if they didn't have permissions to that HR site that you're searching the content.
oh, yeah, they would have, yeah,
It would
clearly.
return any. Well,
Yes, because Copilot, yes, the agent is going to respect permission. So you're right, if they don't have access to that, they wouldn't be responsible. Thank you.
So one of the benefits of having the Copilot licenses then is to avoid this constant ting on your.
That's exactly it. That's why I was saying at the beginning, the direction Microsoft is going is, it's twofold. The whole point of the freemium model is we're gonna give it free until it's so uncomfortable for you that paying feels cheaper. But it does mean that you get to the point where you're like, well, if I want this, I have to pay for it. If I want that, I have to pay for it. I might as well just get it all together. It's why Disney, ESPN, and Hulu works, right? And you start to, so it's not a bad model, but this is where I'm saying, you get to the point where you're like, stop nickel and diming me. It's the same with the Power Platform. You can pay for one app per user, $5 user a month. $20 feels like a whole lot. You go, well, if I have more than 4 apps we're using a month, just be done with it and just pay for it, because it gets, it can get a lot after a while. So you can also access that agent from Copilot. So if I go, oh, by the way, he's coming back to the ranch here. Here is the document. It created my loop presentation. Now, the bar graphs, totally weird. I does nothing like the loop presentation I did. But isn't that nice? We tried to do that. But it did actually base it on my document, and at the end, it actually has all the references that are in here. Now, interestingly enough, it also referenced my references in the document. So isn't that? I feel like this is very hit or miss right now. I'm just gonna be real, not very impressed with it at the moment, but it's heading in the right direction. If I go to if I go online to my OneDrive, you can see here I have a folder called Copilot Generated Documents. And this is the document that I just created. So anyhow, so that's kind of how that works. If I go here to, if I close this down and I go back to any chat, let's now do, if I look at all my agents, I can see that that demo HR agent is now available from when Teams is one of those agents that's available to them. Now, if you wanted to go to the next level and add it to the agent store for your organization, there's a couple more steps you can do to kind of, there are settings in the admin center, whether everybody makes it available and what's formal and not. I'm not going to kind of get into that too much, but just say the benefit is someone wants to go in here and ask us any questions. How many days can I be out for family leave? It should also be sourced in that same information. So it was nice because previously that SharePoint agent wasn't available in Teams, which to me was a huge roadblock. So it's really nice that this is available, and then it goes into documents, and you can see it is grabbing it from the right location of the source. So the next question you had said is what we do if we have a specific document that we want to grab. So if I go to my human resources site, so right now I'm looking at that 2026 view. Let's see, I go to my policies and procedures view. I can actually select more than one item, and I can do AI actions, create an agent. So I can actually say I want an agent. So maybe I have a policies and procedures library and half of them are outdated, but I want to make sure that just the current ones are. You can actually go in and scope it down that way. So I can create an agent and I can actually say the sources are these specific documents. So that's helpful too.
We have like a rule book that is like just insanely large, like safety rules and stuff like that. It's buried in SharePoint somewhere and it's available, but a lot of the guys just go out there and just want to have a quick response to something or curious about all the rules. But you're saying if you create like an agent like that, like anytime they ask a question, that's going to trigger some kind of cost on the Azure side or storage.
If they're not licensed with Copilot. And again, it's about 12 cents a query, so it just depends on how heavily people use it. I always say baseline, just roll it out for a week, roll it out for a month. People use it. They use it, maybe it's worth licensing. I don't know, what's the value proposition?
Yeah.
And it may not be that much. I mean, you may have one person that like just hammers it, but generally people may or may not adopt it. So I'm just saying I would try it, see, but yeah.
There was a suggestion from Melinda online about you could potentially work around that by licensing like your support personnel. If you have, I don't know if you have a position or just one person in like an HR department or something where if they get those queries, then it would save their time going and finding the specific spot and whatever, but it depends on kind of your
That's a great use case though. You're right,
positioning.
of, who needs it? So again, if you had like a knowledge base, maybe there's the help desk needs access to a knowledge base, not everything. It's an interesting way to think about it.
Can anyone create an agent, or do they have to be the owner of a SharePoint site to be able to create an agent for a specific, say your demo HR?
I think anybody can you create, I don't know the answer to that. Can you do a quick Copilot search of that for me, Jamie? I don't know. That's a really good question. I tend to think about this in context of,
Well, in order to add the agent to the SharePoint site, you have to be in.
yeah, because you're adding because you're adding that website. This goes back into permissions of who's allowed to create agents. There are settings in the admin center about who's allowed to
I say
create.
permissions and licensing factor into who can create the agent. So site owner, site member who has editing permissions. So to specifically keep just anyone from going out there and
That's why I'm
creating.
trying to like.
Yes, yeah, so you can set permissions is what it sounds
Because
like.
it creates that .agent file, I think that's logical to me, that you would have to have edit permissions either as a contributor or an owner on the site, otherwise you have permission to drop the .agent file in there. It's just basically a manifest that says for your web access. So that's what's included in the agent, but again, Copilot always respects software boundaries, so it's a handshake, right? In terms of, I can say, like you said, I can put documents in there, but if somebody doesn't have access to those documents from a security standpoint, they're included in the agent, but they're gonna get no results back, right? These are great questions you guys are asking. So let's go in here, and the next one I'm gonna do is, if we go into the agents, if I do,
Right here, I'm a little under 30 minutes, FYI.
okay, thank you for that. SharePoint page agent. So I'm gonna go in here and I'm gonna say, add or create a page that summarizes Microsoft agents based on the presentation. This one we will use our agents presentation. This is the one we're looking at. So it's going to go through and it's going to create that. And
This is the same thing where you have to enable it on the tenant for people to use that.
I know, I feel like, no, I think this is actually I think this is available you have to have a Copilot license, but I don't think this is part of Knowledge Agent. It's confusing, I know. I think that this is just an agent.
So could anybody just
Well,
with a Copilot create SharePoint sites?
No. So you're gonna see what happens here is it's creating content for me right now. And then it's gonna say, where do you wanna put this? And it's only gonna show you sites that you have access to offer. So, okay, would you like me to add a section pricing tiers? Sure, go ahead. So again, because it's an agent, it's asking me clarifying questions. Is this all you want? Do you want more? So it's actually gonna go through and do all this. It's great. All right, well, that's going, I'm gonna keep. All right, people and skills agents. This one, I actually feel like, this is based on Microsoft Viva. Do any of your companies use Viva? Using Engage in that way. Viva is Microsoft's employee engagement platform. They have different products in there, but they're really like, how do you make sure that your staff is not overworking and burned out? How many, are we having focus meetings? Especially during COVID, everybody was having just a skewed work-life balance because everybody's at home. And so they were like, okay, the whole always on was too much. So it was sort of like, but then also in huge organizations, how do you know what's happening downstream from you? And, this is really geared. I have not hardly rolled it out at hardly any organization because it's just such a specific use case. If I was, Accenture, maybe, but, I don't know. I feel like this is one of those products that Microsoft built because it was rolling it out to the Coca-Colas and GMs of the world. It was making lots of money, but for everybody that's like less than that, I don't know. It's hard for me to see that. To me, if you're so out of touch with your downstream that you need an app to tell you who's working for you, you're probably too high up with insurance. But that being said, this is a part of the Viva offerings. Skills, though, is the one thing that I do think is helpful and is available to everybody. So skills basically is a way where you can say, who in my organization has experience with this or that. So if you are at big organizations that are enterprise size, sometimes it is hard when people are in silos and they don't realize that people do other things. So what it's going to do is you have to go to the admin center and set up skills. You can edit it, but they will let you have a blank, like here's a default set of skills, and it's like hundreds of items. So it's pretty comprehensive. If you don't know where to start, you can do that. Clearly, if you're in a hospital setting or manufacturing, you're gonna have specific stuff, right? And this is part of the Viva setup, okay? The cool thing though is when you go to the user Microsoft 365 profile that used to be stored in SharePoint, now it's stored. If you go to your Teams profile, you can edit it. Copilot will suggest what skills it thinks you have. So it's very easy to go, yeah, sure, that looks good, and add it. Then you go into the people agent, you say, who can help me with creating a new SharePoint intranet? And it's going to pop up people with that skill set. So this is really a way of helping people cross-organizationally know what each other's doing and be able to find them. It also has some sort of soft skills. Please show me what skills I need to brush up on. What would help me be effective with my colleagues? It's keeping track through the Microsoft Graph of who you work with. What skills do my colleagues have? Because it's tracking who I'm interacting with on a daily basis. Skills agent is specific for, I felt like honestly, people agents, skills agents, and workforce insights are all sort of 15 degrees off from each other. I don't know why there's 3 of them. The workforce insight is the one where this is only for companies that have set up real intense engagement requirements in terms of who are all the people, what are the properties we're tracking. This is really tracking people in your organization from like an HR perspective, not from an intra-ID perspective, but like, and so this workforce insights is really more about org charts and who's down line and who are my new employees and stuff. So if we look at the people and skills agent, then if we go in here, so this is where I can, SharePoint agent is still working. So we're going to bounce over to Teams here. It's always hard because Teams gives you like 4 numbers, you know, but it's still not the one. Okay. And multitask here. So if I go in here and I go to the agents, and I've got my people agent, or my, you know, I can go in here and I think they're consolidating them because you actually, so if I go to the org, it's actually going to show the org chart, and they have a skills tab here. So this is where it actually showing me right in the agent. These are the skills that you confirmed, but we think you also have these other skills. So I can actually confirm and say, yes, I know how to do that too, right? So it's actually helping people. So I can go in here and say, who can help me with SharePoint intranets? So it's actually going to go through our org chart and see what skill sets people have. Now, the only thing I will say is that bothers me is when I first ran this, it was showing me external clients that I've worked with on projects. That was uncomfortable to me. So it's like, they're not part of my organization. How that's getting in there is a little, you know, like that's, so again, this is a beta product or a part of the frontier to be able to see that. What a bummer that everything was taking so long there. See what this is stuff. Sorry, I'm jumping between. So this basically it said I've created the content. Do you want me to show you a list of recently edited sites? I'm back to the SharePoint page. This gets back to saying, okay, what sites have I edited recently that I want to add this to? So it's actually going to give me a little picker here that I can actually select, and it should show me the intranet sites that I've just been looking at. So if you see there, it's actually showing me, okay, add it to that site. So it's actually showing me that recently used picker. It's going to go, it's going to create it. And what it's going to do is it's going to create the page and it's going to give me a link and say, use this link to jump over to the site, and then I can publish it from there. Sorry that I'm doing these things in parallel, but I'm trying to be judicious with time.
Being time, I do have to run, I'm so sorry, I've got a client meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, it was great meeting everybody, this was great, I really appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Remember your doors? Yeah.
Oh, was it terrific? I wasn't walking, I have a speaker though, Halloween's coming.
So again, the list here unfortunately has Jamie is in my organization, Rick is not in my organization. That's a client and that's a Microsoft person. So you know what, it's, but it is showing me here, people can have a SharePoint intranet, it's all locations. So this actually is scoping it just to people in my organization, even though the results is everywhere. All right. Oh, something went wrong. Please try again later. Okay, why don't we try again now, shall we? All right. The next thing I want to talk about is the learning agent. This is the one I was thinking of you specifically. I know you guys have a learning platform, but the learning agent is tied to Viva Learning, which again is really available to everybody. You have to pay for extra stuff in there. But this is a great way of essentially being able to show that you have sort of a personalized dashboard here where people can go in and they can see, they can set up their own learning plan. And if you have courses that are set up in Viva Learning for your organization, you can actually have it here. So I can actually go in and I can create a learning impact, but also stuff, what skills should I learn to stand out and make an impact? So this is really a way of being able to upskill. It actually encourages you to have streaks, you know, that you can keep going, how often you've used it, organize courses, etc. So explore learning path, and then it's going to have stuff just from LinkedIn Learning. Again, it's tied into setting up LinkedIn Learning. So here's my daily, give me a daily AI tip, etc. So this is a neat self-service way for people to create their own. I went in there and said, I would like to study for exam AB 900, which is the new AI exam coming out. It said, do you want me to create a checklist for you? So I created a checklist. Now, again, it wasn't the Word agent. It couldn't create the Word document for me, but I was like, please copy this into a Word document and then you can print it out. I was like, how cool is that? I can print it out. And as I'm studying, I can go through. I was like, and give me references that I can study for. So, you know what? Here's a tip. Here's a prompt template. So especially as people learning AI, you can teach yourself. So that learning agent is a really cool way. And especially if you use Viva Learning and you tap into your own SharePoint modules or a third-party learning system or LinkedIn Learning, you can use this as a learning platform for your employees. Okay, so the SharePoint agent created it. So it says, here's a link. So what it's doing is it's actually going through. If you look at the URL, it's dynamicpages.aspx. It's pulling it up. And it's showing me all it's actually, it took that content from the prompt, it's copying into the page, and it's actually preparing the draft, but it's a private draft, it's not published yet. So of course I can go through here. So it's the same as if I went to SharePoint and said, create me a page, but I was able to refine it. Isn't this cool? This is from the slide deck. So it created a whole page on that. So that's kind of cool. So that's that pages agent. All right, let's move on.
Did you say those two are connected to LinkedIn Learning?
It is.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
What about other?
No, it's Microsoft Viva. Microsoft Viva only has connectors to a couple learning platforms. Okay. And then if you have to have a paid, LinkedIn has free courses, so they'll give you all the Copilot stuff for free if you have a paid. So again, it's sort of a.
We have the success factors elements that we use, and we have to pay for an upgraded version of Viva Learning to make those comments we mentioned.
Yeah.
Are you using Viva?
No, we had looked into it, but the connector was gonna cost us more money, so just point people to our LMS.
I like the idea that people could create their, when I first started from the product team, I thought people could create their own learning plans, and that's awesome. It's not quite there yet, but I think they're heading in that way. And I like the idea of people creating their own learning plan because then they're motivated to do it rather than sorry. Okay, these app builder and workflow agents, I am skimming over because they're garbage right now. I could not get either of them to work. I want to show you the app builder. So in theory, the app builder is app builder is supposed to, that's like the silver bullet, right? The app builder where just build me an app and it's amazing, right? This is the epitome of vibe coding, which terrifies me. I hate vibe coding, guys.
So we could have just used that to build that app.
Right, exactly, sure. You have no access to the code behind the scenes. You can't change it. You can't tweak it. Well, God is, 50% of the way there. Make it work. Oh, no. Anyhow, so I built an app. So I said, my prompt was, let's see if I might have been reading it. Is it there? Okay. I'm gonna try it again. I basically said, create an app that's like a quiz for Super Bowl 2026. This is the quiz. I said, give me 10 questions. It gave me the questions. Do you see the answers? There is a SharePoint site behind the scenes that's keeping track of the answers. But isn't that fun?
Hey.
So, but the idea here is that you can go in there and you can actually say, you can have a prompt, create me an app that does this and it builds it. The same thing for the workflows app. You can actually go in and be able to create a workflow that's basically using Power Automate behind the scenes, except guess what? You don't have access to Power Automate, so when it doesn't work, you can't fix it. But they have great prompts like create a weekly planner, a weekly project update. Now, again, the funny thing is when I tried to run it, I have so many tasks assigned to me that actually, and I tried to scope it to one task list, and still it's like, the instructions are too long.
You have to have a Power Automate premium license or just free?
It's not using Power Automate.
Oh.
I'm saying under the covers it is, except when it breaks, you have no access to anything. It doesn't show up in the Power Platform. You are sore out of luck if you cannot, if it doesn't work. So this is one of the many things. If it works, yay. If it doesn't work, yeah. So anyhow, but the idea is that essentially it gave me a prompt which said, every Monday morning, review all the columns of the SharePoint list and send my team a professional weekly project health update. The email should summarize all the projects under these sections. But now it's going through and saying, okay, which list am I accessing? So you would have to go in and build it out. But if we go back to, if I go back to my, the agent here, and we look at some of the other ones I've had, like here's a daily account management reminder. It is going to build basically a plan for me and say, okay, it runs at 9 a.m. It's going to get all our tasks from the sales list. And then you can actually go in through here and you can view the runs of it. As you can see, it failed every time, but I can go through and I can actually see what failed in it. So it's like Power Automate Lite. So this is a way where end users can go through and create their own lightweight Power Automate flows.
Your screen keeps you off right as you were talking.
Oh, yeah.
It got tired of you.
Which you are at 5 minutes, so.
Okay. Well, we are almost at the end of the deck. Basically, the rest of the deck essentially is walking through, I'm glossing over the, is it connected yet?
No.
No. Sorry, guys. For folks online, it's, it kicked me off of the TV I was projecting to. I had to do this about 10 times for Dora. Copilot Studio is a low-code platform. And the thing about it is the low-code platform has always been based on connectors. So the great thing though is before your connector had to say, if I'm querying a SQL engine, a SQL database, I have to create a SQL query to pass information to it. Now you can use natural language that says, talk to my, thank you, Larry, for coming. I want to update customer information. I can just use natural language to say, grab their information and put it in there. So you can actually use natural language to build your Copilot agent. It's still not. I don't know why
We're tracking what you're saying here.
tracking that. So I wish I could, and this is where the core purpose of this is to show you a lot of the out of the box stuff. The custom agents is really where the upshot of how I can summarize it is to say, it's back up there. AI is inconsistent. Processes, business process automation is automating a business process. You can't have a typical business process. It has to be the same every time. So what we can do is we can use that studio to embed little snippets. So I can say, make a call to this language model. So say, okay, so again, say you're in an environment where you're not utilizing Copilot. You've decided you've set it on a different language model. But you still want to access documents in SharePoint. You can use the Copilot Studio to say, access this library. But every time I summarize it, make a third-party connector call to my third-party agent, cost way less, come back, give me the summary, and now return it in a Teams message. So I can still utilize the Microsoft user interface, but instead of Copilot and ChatGPT and these other models being in there, I'm actually using a different model inserted in there. And then when you get into Microsoft Foundry, that's where you have totally custom solutions. So Copilot Studio literally can go in there and say, what would you like to build? Microsoft Foundry is when you're going in and you can actually choose which language models you want. That's where custom solutions, but you can have a Microsoft Foundry agent that your agent calls, getting back to agents calling agents. So you can mix and match low code and pro code in here. And again, I'm not spending a lot of time on this because it takes significant work to be able to put this in there. But the point is saying Copilot Studio is sort of the holy grail that you can use natural language to build an agent. You can dive deep into it. And if you need to have these other components that are plugged into it, you can. The last thing, I'm going to breeze through this because I know we got a couple minutes left. At Microsoft Ignite, they announced the Copilot control system. This is a new dashboard for managing Copilot in the admin center. The key is Copilot is secured using everything that's already built in. There's really nothing, I'll say there's nothing new. It's using Purview. Everything it accesses is already in Microsoft and is already secured through Purview in terms of compliance and security. Defender is obviously the security component of that. But the point is it can be confusing though when you're like, where do I look for what? Because how you manage it is licensing and Purview and all these different things. So it's going to show you user adoption and how many people are using it. The other thing I wanted to point out is Microsoft just announced Anthropic as a sub-processor. Have any of you heard of Claude before? Okay, Claude is a favorite. Some people like it better than ChatGPT, especially coders. So the point is that the problem is before Microsoft basically installed ChatGPT on their servers in Azure. So it was it's like, I have Savvy Technical Solutions is on a WordPress site, but WordPress is hosted in Azure. It's not hosted through WordPress.org. So every time you're using ChatGPT, it was installed in Microsoft's tenant. Now, Anthropic, you're tossing it over the fence and back. But they have promised to adhere to Microsoft's policies. So if you get sued, Microsoft will defend you. But you still have to okay it. This is one of those things was a real I don't know, is it? So everybody has to decide it, but you can turn that on. And then people have access to use Claude. So again, in this Copilot settings data access, you can say AI providers operating as Microsoft sub-processors. They've made a setting there because there may be more. Right? Meta has their own language as more come online. Basically, Microsoft is tightly tagged to ChatGPT. there were antitrust issues going on, and so for better and for worse. I think, again, capitalism, innovation, let's do it, right? So this is where, there's only a couple places where Claude is available. If you see Claude, it's like OpenAI owns ChatGPT. Claude is owned by Anthropic. Those are sort of synonymous. So it's not in a lot of places yet, but especially if you're doing things like Excel, where you might be doing computations, it's more coding, Python-esque stuff, that's going to be available. And then agent management. This is the thing that I thought was super cool. And it's one of my favorite things. They give you a heat map, which is the coolest thing. The key is it's going to show you which agents are calling other agents. So if you start to feel like, oh my goodness, especially if you're an organization where people are starting to get really excited about setting up autonomous agents, and you're like, wait a second, is this data leaving my enterprise? This is where you can actually see.
Show me who's using it or who created it and all that?
No, but if we go here, I'll show you, it is gonna give you a lot of information about, so if I go to the admin center for, agents, and I know we're right at time, so I'm gonna wrap up, guys. Thank you. I think we are at the end here. If we go into agents,
We can see the one that showed who created it.
it's actually gonna, it's gonna give you a catalog of a registry of all the agents. It's gonna show you what are the channels that are in there, who the publisher is it available? So this is the one I just created, right? This is literally the one I just created in front of you. What does it have access to? So under data and tools, it calls knowledge. What are the actions it can do? What is the knowledge it can do? Security and compliance, it's going to go in and start showing you the information of how that's secured using Purview. Monitor agent activity, protect sensitive data, enable compliance gaps, and this is all in Purview here. So this is where I can go in here, and then when I go into the overview, I think this is where I get into there's the registry. There's the map. The map is part of Frontier. So you can see these are the micro, so it actually just added this. It wasn't there when I was demoing this. I had to add that. Those are my 3 SharePoint agents that I just created. These are the Microsoft agents. These are all the third-party agents. I haven't installed any third-party agents in my environment yet, just Microsoft. But I can, but it is kind of cool. It's saying how many of the agents, what's the catalog, and then people are requesting agents and those request. So that is it. Thank you guys for coming. I'm gonna, let's see if I can share my screen again. On the last screen, we have, if you guys want to download the deck, feel free to pass it on. I just have it as, you can't download it, you can just view it. But that is how you can access that. I've tried to put as many links as I can for stuff after the fact, so. I know we're at time, there was so much